It is inaccurate to call it crazy. It's just not anything that any country in the free world would do. First and foremost, it was about stopping people from criticizing the government, from criticizing politicians like him.
We've seen too many examples of public officials retreating from public service due to the hateful online content targeted towards themselves or even their families.
And the rules had shocking punishments, like literally the ability to delete entire websites that offend him.
We envision having blocking orders. I mean, maybe it's not, it would likely be a last result nuclear bomb in a toolbox of mechanism for regulators.
So Stephen Guilbeault dumped his proposal to the public after Parliament rose for the summer, and he said that he called for consultations, but Parliament wasn't sitting, so there were no hearings. No one was working in Parliament. They were out campaigning. It was a meaningless consultation, of course. The whole point of censorship is you don't really want to hear from people who disagree with you anyway, so who cares, right? Despite that, a whole raft of groups who care about the internet, and even a few who care about freedom, weighed in. One guy I really admire is Professor Michael Geist, a freedom-oriented professor at the University of Ottawa, who wrote a detailed reply to the proposals. It's fascinating. He points out the proposal doesn't even mention the Charter of Rights at all. That the proposal isn't really made in Canada. It adopts the worst of bad policy choices from other countries. That it blurs how to deal with real crimes like terrorism or child pornography with political non-crimes like hurting Guilbeault's feelings. Geist points out how this censorship can creep into anything online, including, I don't know, do you use that private messaging app called WhatsApp? That could be covered too. And all this with a massive new bureaucracy. It's really a great analysis from Professor Geist, and there are others like it from other scholars. Very interesting if you have the time. Here's another group of lawyers and academics called Citizen Lab. I'll sum up their points. This consultation is inadequate. The proposed regime will not achieve its intended goals. The scope of the proposal is overbroad and incoherent. Automated enforcement exacerbates pre-existing problems. Unidirectional takedown incentive will likely be inequitable and unconstitutional. Surveillance and mandatory reporting requirements are dangerous and chilling. New CSIS powers are unjustified and inappropriately included in this consultation. And conclusion, rewrite the proposal from the ground up. Holy mackerel! That's a pretty succinct summary, isn't it? They go into great detail, of course. Heck of a read. Then there's this from the Canadian Internet Policy Group of scholars. The online harms proposal combines some of the worst elements of other laws around the world. This is why CIPIC, that's the name of their group, believes that the Department of Canadian Heritage needs to overhaul its current approach to addressing the problems caused by unlawful online content. We are seriously concerned about numerous elements of the proposed law, such as the lack of adequate transparency requirements, the loosened requirements for the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, to obtain basic subscriber information, the various jurisdictional issues raised by the law, and whether an administrative body like the Digital Recourse Council should be able to determine what speech is legal under Canadian law. Holy moly. Let me read some more. Here's the Internet Society of Canada. Let me read 3 paragraphs from their work, okay? The remedies proposed by the government effectively create 2 parallel regimes, both of which are intrusive of the privacy rights of individuals. They are designed to chill speech. The prime remedy for internet harms, as proposed by the government, is a mandated censorship regime. It would require social media platforms under the supervision of the state to censor the speech of their users. The platform censorship regime will be backed by an ongoing governmental surveillance of the censorship practices of the platforms to ensure they meet minimal government standards and that the government determines to be best practices. The second remedy consists of requirements that platforms report to law enforcement and national security agencies content that it may have adjudged harmful under its internal censorship policies. Holy moly! There are actually about a half a dozen other groups that scorch the government like this, and these are scholars. They're legal experts or internet industry groups. They are not partisan people. These are not political parties. In fact, the Conservatives have been silent. But all these experts think it's astonishingly bad law and policy. But I can see only one journalism group that weighed in. Our friends at the Internet Press Gallery, run by Candace Malcolm of True North, about 50 or so independent journalists in it, including Rebel News. You can see here, we'll post the whole document below this video. I encourage you to read it. It's the freedom argument. It's from freedom-oriented journalists. There are so many great arguments in here, including many related to the utter vagueness of the powers given to the Internet regulator. That's not by accident. Vague legal drafting is designed to give bureaucrats maximum power later. Here's a sample. Let me read a little bit for you. C-36, the Canadian Human Rights Commission, will be inundated with allegations of hate speech where the speech is of a quasi-private nature, or the complainant has not suffered an adverse consequence in the protected areas as required by the Part 2 of the Moore test. Finally, it is arbitrary, unreasonable, overly broad, and unnecessary for the Commission to have jurisdiction over communication on the Internet or by telecommunication, where the same communication made verbally or in print would fall outside the Commission's jurisdiction. Isn't that the truth? Do you get that? So you can say something anywhere else and the law can't touch you. You say it on the Internet and suddenly they can hunt you for it. How does that make sense? That's a good observation. Here's another part in there where Internet companies themselves have to report your bad behavior to the cops. And I do mean the cops. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.